BizMap Ptbo, Peterborough's business vlog. Each episode creates a business map to your success. We will introduce you to people and places in our city who will help you make it happen, showcasing why Ptbo is the place to live, play, and prosper. Hi, and welcome to BizMap Ptbo. In this episode, we're going to be talking to manufacturers. You might be thinking, are we talking to car manufacturers, truck manufacturers? No, it's pretty unique. We're going to be talking to some manufacturing of ice cream, manufacturing of maple syrup. So stay tuned for an exciting episode on manufacturing from right here in Peterborough.
My name is Brooke and I'm the founder of Chimp Treats, and I'm here to talk about food manufacturing. Our product is called an ice cream, and it is like an ice cream but made entirely from bananas. It is a really innovative product, meaning that the composition and the process to make it is very different and very unique, which can be problematic when you're a startup with no money and no manufacturing facility or knowledge of manufacturing. So the way it started was I found a recipe online for banana ice cream, and there were a few issues with it, mainly, it took so much time to make it beforehand, you had to freeze them, and then you couldn't keep it in the freezer after. But I knew that if people could buy this in a grocery store ready to eat, it would be huge. So that was enough motivation for me to try to figure out a process. So it started with me making it in my kitchen, and that's how most food products start out. And then from there, we used a great resource called the Ontario Agri-Food Venture Center. Basically, it's a large commercial kitchen, so it meets all of the safety standards that the government sets out, but you can rent it for a half a day or a full day, and you can make your product there and store it there, and they work with you every step of the way. From there, we had a few issues. They didn't really have the equipment that we needed at the time, so we partnered with a local ice cream manufacturer, and we ran our mix through their equipment. And the end product was great, better than what we started with, and it was really well received by the consumer. And on the same day that we got a call from a huge distributor who listed our product, we were ecstatic, and then our manufacturer called us and told us that they couldn't make our product anymore. Their equipment was broken, and it was because of our product. So that whole partnership was up in flames. So the same day we got the best news so far that the biggest food distributor in Canada was going to list our products. We got the news that we didn't have a product anymore because nobody was making it for us. And that was a really, really tough day, maybe one of the toughest so far. We've come close financially to going out of business a few times, but this was a whole nother level of stress because, success was right there. We have all of these orders lined up, and we have all this interest, and now the one partnership that was never an issue has now gone up in flames, basically. So I, collected myself, and I told myself, my favorite quote is that if you're going to be successful, you have to approach Plan F with the same amount of enthusiasm you had for Plan A. It's hard to do in the moment, but that's what I told myself, and I relied on all of my resources and my advisory board and different mentors that I have, and we went back to the drawing board trying to find a new process, and now we're back at the Food Venture Center with a different process that's more efficient and with the same end product, and we are working together to be able to launch in Whole Foods. If you are an entrepreneur with a food product that you are trying to manufacture, you should know that there are 3 ways that food products are typically manufactured. The first is making it yourself. It could be in your kitchen if you get it certified, which isn't too expensive. Depends on your kitchen, of course, if you can do it. But the liability is all yours to keep up those safety standards, and it can be a lot, and you might find that you quickly reach your capacity and you can't do it anymore, which is a great problem to have, but unless you have a backup, that can leave you in a really tough place with your retailers. The second way to manufacture your food product is to rent a commercial kitchen or kitchen and share. So a lot of startups, just like you, are wanting to make their food product, or maybe they've already went that step and invested in their own manufacturing facility. But they don't quite reach their capacity yet, or they're not in there every day, all day, maximizing the equipment that they do have. In that case, they usually post online. It's not hard to find that they are willing to rent out their commercial kitchen to another food manufacturer, or there are more formal options like the Ontario Agri-Food Venture Center that I mentioned, where it is, government funded and a lot more regulated, highest safety standards. You don't have to worry so much about things like that. And while this is great that there is a much lower amount of capital required in order to start making your product, there are a few downsides. The first being priorities. So if it's not your commercial kitchen and it's somebody else's, you're just renting it, if they need to make more product and you have it booked, you get bumped because it's not yours, and it's just kind of the way it works. Whoever's been there longer, whoever owns it, they get final say. The other issue being storage. This was huge for me because I need to have bananas everywhere. I need to have them ripening. I need to get them in freezers. I need to bring them out. It was going to take up a lot of room, essentially, and a lot of commercial kitchens don't have storage to give, especially not on that level. So depending on your product, if it's shelf stable, maybe you'll be okay. But if it's frozen, there's not usually a lot of storage options. The third way to manufacture your food product, which I'm currently utilizing, is co-packing. This can actually be co-packing or manufacturing. So basically, it's another company. They already have the equipment that you need, usually, or they'll make an investment so that they can manufacture your product. And they charge you a set amount per unit, and their staff will make it for you. This is great because you don't have to invest in the equipment, you don't have to actually ever touch the product, you don't have to worry about hiring staff, managing them, payroll, anything like that. You just pay for the product and you get it. And of course it costs a little bit more money for that to have the highest safety standards and all of that knowledge and great staff, but it really is worth it because big chains like that, if that's your end goal to get your product into, they have very strict requirements and they won't accept products that aren't made in certified facilities. Manufacturers are great, but if you're in a co-packing agreement, it means that you're partners and you share liability. So if one of their workers makes a big mistake and all of my product melts, they don't refund me the money because we're partners and it's shared risk. So then I'm out all of that money. And that's the biggest downside, I think. But really, in terms of liability, they usually have much more sanitary and safe environments than anything that you could have in your own space or in a shared commercial kitchen. Finding a co-packer can be the most difficult part of manufacturing your food product because everybody is looking for a co-packer for their food product. And they get so many applications every day for new product submissions, which is great, but a lot of people are following a lean startup model, probably like you, where they don't want to invest in their own facility, and they probably shouldn't until they test the market, which just means that you need to have something unique, and you need to be able to convince the person you're going to be speaking to that you are a good investment for them to be making. To find a co-packer, I recommend going through your Business Advisory Center, OMAFRA, or your personal network to try to get a personal introduction to the organization you're going to be speaking to. I know it's a lot of information and a lot to process because there are so many key players that you need to incorporate, and it was really daunting for me when I got started. So my advice would be to rely on your resources and the organizations you're a part of, and especially your mentors. Map it all out, your whole business model, everybody who needs to play a part in this that you need to bring together, and run the numbers over and over and over again until you're making enough money and everybody else is taking as much as they need. So you'll have it all mapped out and you'll be well on your way to success.
Hi and welcome to the Ontario Agri-Food Venture Center. My name's Joe Mullen and I'm the operations manager here at the center. A lot of people ask us what we do at the center, and I guess the best way that we like to describe it is it's a launch pad for entrepreneurs. And when I say that, it's some people come in where they've had a little bit of experience making things in a commercial kitchen perhaps. In other cases, they've had absolutely no experience, and they've just got a dream. They've got a concept, a food concept, and they would like to bring it to the store shelves. So we help in that regard. We have a number of different services that we offer, and it starts from just your business planning, and we do that through the Business Advisory Center of Northumberland County. And we have food scientists that will work with you. We have a lab on site. We have packaging experts, and we have a commercial kitchen. So we bring it all together, and we just work with the clients to be successful. Another service that we offer a lot of the times, something that's very intimidating, is just getting the nutritional facts figured out when regards to the table that is required by Health Canada and the various regulations. So again, we try and take the intimidation factor down, and we work with you at getting that nutritional facts table on your product and developed. And sometimes we can do it with simple recipes. We could do that in as little as an hour, and as cheap as $40 to $50, where some people have told us some stories where they're paying $1,500 to $3,000 for the same thing. We're constantly bringing in new innovators, new people that are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. Perhaps they've always thought about doing this, and we just help them, comfort them through the steps in becoming successful. Where we can, we'll also help get that store shelf space. So anything at all that we can do to help them be successful, we're here for them. So that in a nutshell is basically what we do here at the Ontario Food Center.
Hello, my name is Alex Bushell. I'm the co-founder of Lab Improvements. Tonight I'm here to chat with people about manufacturing locally here in Peterborough. So we've developed a machine called the Cab Track. We developed it, designed it, and manufacture here in Peterborough, which we've been through the entire process from beginning to end and learned quite a few things along the way. Probably the first thing I learned about manufacturing is that no matter how good you think you are, you don't know everything. Along the way, you definitely need mentors and people. There's people out there who have done this before, trust me, especially in Peterborough. Peterborough is full of people who have done it all. One of the early things we did, one of the first stages, is we networked like crazy to find people who have done similar manufacturing operations. Doesn't even need to be the same kind of product, but they've got the contacts. And generally, people will be glad to give you advice for free. Very early on in the first few months, we built up an entire network of mentors that we could fall back on at any time. Just pick up the phone, call, email, text, and if it's something as simple as trying to find a supplier to purchase something or advice or whatnot, we would have somebody that we could ask that question to, and it saved us from having to vet a lot of people. So back in 2014, my partner and co-founder and I came up with an idea for a product. We came up with this idea after meeting with laboratories and other professionals in the field. We proved our business case, raised the money, and then it came time. We had to start designing and building the product. What we did first was we assembled our dream team of sorts. So we hired mostly former coworkers, that people we worked with in the past. So we weren't posting job ads. We were calling up friends and saying, hey, are you still interested in doing some of this sort of work? People were coming in and working for us in the evenings, on the weekends, and together we started working kind of very slowly, coming up with a general concept. We had a machinist, we had a programmer, a 3D designer, and kind of a wiring guy. And then my partner and I kind of ran the whole operation and helped where we could. And then together we came up with the design of the parts that we needed to do, sourcing materials. Unfortunately, some circuit boards and whatnot have to come in from other countries, but we were really focused on manufacturing locally because it gives you total control over the quality of the parts. When you can actually physically get in your car and drive 15 minutes over to your supplier and say, how's it going? And they pretty much have to show you what they're doing. It gives you really good control over the work that's being done. When we initially started, we actually have our own machinist on hand, because when you're doing research and development and developing a product, there's a lot of testing. And that's one thing I firmly believe is for programming and machining and design, all needs to be in-house, because if you try to outsource that, you'll spend forever trying to do it, because you'll design something, send it out to the shop, you won't get it back for 2 weeks, you get it, you go try it, it doesn't work. Well, now you've got to send it back to the shop with the revisions, and 2 weeks later it comes back. It just makes development impossible. But when you've got a machinist, and it's kind of funny, our machinist lives on the other side of the bay from where our shop is, so we actually get parts brought back and forth via tin boat during the summertime. It's shorter than driving. But in 20 minutes, we can run the part over, shave off whatever wasn't working, bring it back, test it again. Okay, perfect, it works. We can turn something around in an afternoon as opposed to weeks at a time. So when we first started, we vetted a lot of our suppliers through mentors that we had. So if we were looking for somebody who could machine a certain type of material and was very good at it, we would call our mentors, and they would say, oh, you got to call Jim, he does this over here, and it's usually in someone's garage or back shop or some little industrial unit that doesn't even have a sign on it, because these guys are very good at what they do and they operate solely on people finding them through referrals. We worked very closely with our suppliers through the development phase. Rather than just developing a product and sending it to them when it was finished, when our design was finished, we would send them preliminary drawings, and they could very quickly send something back and say, this edge that you've made a 90-degree corner, if you round that out, like if that has no impact on your design, that would make our life that much easier when we actually go to manufacture this part. So by working with us and working with them, we were able to get a much cheaper product because they already know what it is, they understand it, they're not getting curveballs, and they're not being asked to do unnecessary work that they don't need to do. Well, we developed and manufactured the machine locally. Because we developed it in a way that it's a small footprint and it doesn't weigh very much, we can ship it pretty much anywhere in the world we need it. So what we're doing is we're partnering with distributors in different regions who are manning the sales force. One of the things my partner and I decided very early on is we're going to stick with what we're good at, and that is designing, building, and maintaining automated machinery. So we are letting the outside sales forces through distributor network do all the actual pushing of the product. Anyways, I hope my insight into our experiences with manufacturing locally here within Peterborough are able to help viewers. And if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to get in touch, and be glad to discuss.
Hi, my name is Tyler Steeves. I make drinks. I've got a company called TreeWell Limited, and we make sparkling maple sap, and we're launching a new product called That Damn Tea in about a month or so. Question that I sometimes asked is, what was my personal reason for, deciding to do it myself versus try some other way? Well, the reason is I made something that was hard to make for a number of reasons. So the first one is that it requires pasteurization, it requires a full boil. So that means that you're in line with someone like a brewer or maybe somebody who does soda, but even soda guys generally aren't going to be doing something that requires a full-on boil. They separate theirs into syrups and water. So I had something in common with the brewery, but then my bottle and the cork and the wire hood have something more in common with the sparkling winery. But then the cork is smaller, which is kind of like brewery. The whole point is no one type of business made a product exactly like this. Why was that a problem? It was a problem because they didn't have the right equipment. They had some of the equipment, but not all the equipment. It's like I needed 2 different businesses worth of equipment to do what I needed to do. In the end, it just turned out that the only way to get the consistency and the quality of product that we needed to produce, we had to do it ourselves. So that's what we did. So the question is, what are the steps to manufacture my product? So we'll start with TreeWell Sparkling Maple Sap, and we'll start with getting the ingredients ready. So the first part of getting your product ready is to make sure it actually tastes good. That's a bit of a deal. So you have to get working on it, but that's related to another thing which is going to have a huge impact on how it tastes, and that's shelf stability. So if you want your product to actually be shelf stable, and that means last more than 3 months unrefrigerated, then you need to do a few things to make sure that it's going to last. The first thing is to lower the pH. By doing that, what you do is you make an inhospitable environment for microbes and bacteria. And so the unintended consequence is that when you lower pH, you almost always increase the sourness of your product. And so the balance of flavor becomes more difficult, but it's doable. But that's also why you may cook something awesome at home, and then you find it hard to find that same thing in the store. It's because of shelf stability. So when you're making a product, you have to get that shelf stability right before you get your flavor right, because the flavor will change, and then it's about balance. And sourness is generally balanced by sweetness. So that's the little balancing act you have to do there. And then the rest of the nuances and depths of flavor, hopefully you can pull out with the ingredients that you use. So if you're thinking about making a product, you have to think about your packaging. Your packaging it's absolutely critical. One guy told me that packaging is to food what location is to retail. So location, 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 packaging, packaging, packaging. You really have to get that right because the way that you package your product has a huge impact on what you can do with it. Again, we get back to this shelf stability ideal. When you talk about packaging, you influence the ways that you can keep your product shelf stable, which you hear me coming back to because it's absolutely critical. If you're going to have a product, it has to stay good on the shelf because you have to be able to ship it. So when you're looking at the packaging, you have to choose the packaging, and you should do that based on can you keep it shelf stable. So you're going to have to do some research there. And the next thing is where can you source it from? Because depending on what type of packaging you're sourcing, the quantities that you're ordering, they're called MOQs, minimum order quantities, are going to be totally different. It could be a box of something. If that's lids, that's probably a couple thousand. It could be a pallet of something. If that's lids, that's 45,000. Or it could be a truckload. If that's lids, that's like over $1 million. So MOQs are a huge deal. You need to know that before you're getting into any type of packaging because your packaging choices have a huge impact on what you make and how you make it because, you know, it's hard to start and make $250,000 of one thing before you have a business. So packaging matters and you have to keep that in mind. The question you might have is how do I actually produce my product? So it breaks down into two processes. You need to kill anything that might be living and then you need to make an inhospitable environment for anything that might in the future live. It's kind of weird, I know. It's like, imagine a chicken coop, you have chickens and you have eggs. Well, the chickens are like the bacteria and the eggs are like the spores of the bacteria. So it's fairly easy to kill bacteria, just like it's fairly easy to kill chickens. It's a little harder to kill eggs or spores. They're just really resilient. I mean, if a bomb went off in a chicken coop, all the chickens are gone. But there might be eggs that survive. They've just got an enormous strength to them. It's the same thing with spores. So even though you've boiled your product and you've killed all the bacteria, there may still be spores left that could grow in the future. And so that's why it's really important that you lower the pH or increase the sugar or increase the salt. Those are kind of your ways of creating an inhospitable environment for future growth. So the question might be, how do you get started? Do you do it yourself? Do you get co-packers? Do you get something in between? For me, I kind of tried it all. So I tried doing it myself on a really small scale, and that worked, but it is incredibly laborious. Every single bottle is just, you know, a huge amount of effort because what you're trying to do is downscale a industrial process with consumer grade equipment and it doesn't translate super well. If you want to go through speed and efficiency, you need good equipment and it's hard to do at a small scale. And so I did try co-packing, and co-packing can be brilliant if you have volume. There are amazing co-packers out there who will take your product. I mean, you know, you send them a formulation and they just make your product. Awesome, right? But the problem is that you need volume and you need consistent sales. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, like where do you start? There are definitely places out there that can help you get started, but generally you have to do it yourself at some point. And so for me, that point came where, you know, I needed to get out of my kitchen because I needed to actually get some, you know, some volume going. And at some point you need to kind of make that jump. And ideally sales are what are pushing that jump. Because if you take that jump before you have sales kind of pulling you to it, it can be a little bit unnecessarily risky. But at some point you probably have to do it. So that's going to be a personal decision for you. But I certainly find that magic happens when you have space and when you're doing it yourself. You learn things, you find out new things, and you have some control, which is super important. And if you don't have that volume to jump into a co-packing relationship at the outset, it may be your only way. Taking the time, really nice chatting with you, and you know, you just need to start. It's one of those things where get going and things will happen. It's kind of magic and you'll probably have some fun. It will be hard, that's kind of part of what makes it more fun, is the challenge. So embrace it, have a good time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of BizMat PTBO. We spoke to a number of manufacturers, a little bit different than what you expected, wasn't it? Pretty exciting. Thank you again. See you next time on BizMat PTBO.